I am currently engaged in a process of introspective deliberation regarding my circumstances. I am divorced due to my wife's infidelity, and I have been divorced for approximately 1 year. I do not have any children or close relatives residing in the immediate vicinity. I am disclosing this information because I am seeking the company of another man's wife. I am uncertain as to whether my feelings are rooted in love, necessity, infatuation, or mere desire. I am aware that retribution is part of it. I do not know her well. I see her frequently at lunchtime, as she works in the same building as I do. I am attempting to ascertain as much information as possible about her. I am going to have a child with her, but I am troubled by the question of whether I should do so. It is a distressing sensation to desire someone so intensely. I have reached the conclusion that I would be willing to take her by force if necessary. I have ascertained that she is in her early 30s and of good physical construction. She is married to a man of poor character, as far as I am aware. She has no children. Her husband is of poor character because he does not realize what he has and is ready to risk losing her. Of all these factors, the most troubling is that he has destroyed my marriage. He had previously engaged in sexual intercourse with my wife. As a result, I am now going to engage in sexual intercourse with his wife as a form of retribution. I believe that I am doing her a favor by doing this. I am aware that this may appear to be psychopathic behavior, but I am in fact a psychopath. I have been this way since I discovered my wife cheating on me. One day, I arrived home early from work. Upon entering my residence, I was wholly unaware of my surroundings. I proceeded directly to my bedroom to change. My wife was lying in the center of the bed. Upon seeing me, she let out a scream. The unfaithful individual assumed he had done an excellent job on her. I immediately grabbed his shoulders and pushed him away from my wife, who was cheating on me. My wife and I engaged in a physical altercation. I threw him to the floor and began striking him with considerable force. When he attempted to rise, my wife screamed. I escorted him to the door and threw him out, leaving him in a state of undress. I discarded his wallet and car keys on the ground, but did not remove his clothes. He rose unsteadily and proceeded to his vehicle, which he drove away. I did not see or hear from him again. Once more, until circumstances beyond my control intervened, I returned to the bedroom where my wife was hastily dressing. She began to weep. "Kevin," I said, "the situation is not as it seems. Let us discuss it. We can work it out, not as it appeared. You were entertaining him in our bed," I stated. "Is that correct, or not?" "Please, Kevin," I said. "I must elucidate." I interrupted her. "You either had a pleasant experience with him or you did not. Which is it? It is not a challenging question. Simply answer it." I waited a few seconds before stating that, given the difficulty you are having answering the question, our conversation has reached its conclusion. I am going to dinner. You have 1 hour to purchase whatever you desire. You desire to remove yourself from my life. If you are still here when I return, I will force you to leave. That is all. You have 1 hour. This is the end of our discussion. I exited the room and waited 2 hours before returning. I hoped she would leave. I am a man of my word. I would fulfill my pledge even if she were my wife. Upon my return home, I discovered that she had vacated the premises. Additionally, she had misappropriated the majority of her personal belongings. She had left me a note, which I had initially planned to disregard. However, I reconsidered and decided to peruse it. The note read, "Dear Kevin, I made a mistake. Jim is nothing to me. He was merely an old high school acquaintance that I recently encountered. We were romantically involved in high school. You were aware that I was not a virgin. When we married, Jim was my first romantic interest. Memories of the past endure. I met Jim in the mall and was delighted to see him again, as though we were old friends. He began flirting with me, and I began to reminisce about the past. He inquired about my residence, and I proceeded to walk over to my house. Despite my initial suspicions, I erred in judgment when we entered the house. I showed him around, and when we went into the bedroom, he placed his arms around me and kissed me. It seemed like old times. Then, something unexpected occurred. We began kissing as we used to, and he took me. I deeply regret this occurrence. Nevertheless, it did occur. I offer my sincerest apologies for causing you pain. Please consider me in a positive light. I pledge to be a devoted wife and refrain from infidelity in the future. Kevin, I genuinely care for you. The note causes me immense distress. This individual had a name that my wife held in high regard. However, I am one of those individuals who believes that love can be lost. In my case, it was not entirely true. The emotion of vengeance replaced the emotion of love. It is not always a choice to seek vengeance, it is a necessity. I would have received mine the next day. I took a day off from work and realized I needed to update our bank and savings accounts. I called the majority of the credit card companies and canceled them. I retained the 2 accounts in my name, in case of any charges. I am an implacable adversary, and I am not afraid to admit it. Indeed, you are Rachel's father, who called to inquire about the conflict between Rachel and me. I became enraged and asked what is wrong with you. Surely, you did not lack the confidence to ask. George, your own daughter was the perpetrator of this infraction. I observed her engaging in mischievous behavior with a friend in our bed. I am not inclined to pardon her actions, so I promptly removed her from the premises. She had the opportunity to achieve her desired outcome, and I am not inclined to provide her with further financial assistance. If she wishes to pursue legal action and expose her misdeeds, that is her prerogative. I otherwise requested that she leave me alone. 2 days later, Rachel's younger sister, Karen, called and asked if I could speak with her for a few minutes. I informed her that I was listening. She began to tell me how Rachel was really sorry, but I interrupted her. I stated that I was indifferent to how sorry Rachel might be. My primary concern was whether should you utter Rachel's name again, I will terminate the call. Your sister is no longer a figure in my life. Karen inquired as to whether there were any additional personal belongings remaining in the house that belonged to her sister. I informed her that her sister had 1 hour to take whatever she wished. If she forgot anything, it was unfortunate. Karen mentioned a few items, and I was becoming irritated, so I responded in the only way I knew how. Karen, I will tell you what you're going to do. You will come here and do it on my bed, and I will give you whatever else you want for your beloved sister. She responded with a derogatory remark. I am astonished at your audacity in addressing me in such a manner. I will await your husband's arrival and then address the matter with him. Do you believe that I will be denied the opportunity to do so? I have always regarded you as a source of entertainment. I am now faced with the prospect of dealing with your pitiful spouse. I was not intimidated by this individual, who was merely a yes-man for his wife. I was confident that I anticipated that I would eventually encounter him at my residence. I overheard a conversation on the telephone, which I believed to be between Rachel and Karen. I could discern only the words, "Kevin, you son of a," before the call was terminated. I promptly contacted my attorney and requested that he draft the necessary legal documents without disclosing any information to Rachel. We proceeded to rent a residence, with each of us contributing financially. I retained ownership of my vehicles. Aside from that, I merely maintained possession of my savings accounts. Rachel did not contest her divorce. I made it clear that I would not communicate with any member of the family other than Karen. That was only if she met my demands. I was unyielding in my stance. Karen was attractive. She appeared to be slightly more refined than her sister, Rachel. Both were, despite the fact that Karen was a few years younger and presumably wrote less because her husband was a weakling. I was on the verge of moving out of the house and the divorce was already final. I contacted Karen and inquired if she would be interested in retrieving some of her sister's personal belongings. I was relocating to an apartment and I was disinclined to transport her belongings, so if she did not come, I would simply discard them. She promptly agreed to collect the items that evening. I informed her that she could either come unaccompanied or with her husband, who I regarded as an unwelcome presence. When Karen arrived, she was alone. I inquired about her husband. She informed me that he was otherwise occupied. I was able to discern his true fear, and she was aware of my intentions upon entering the house. We proceeded to the bedroom, where I was in the process of packing her sister's belongings. She reached for one of the boxes, and I interjected, "Wait, you have not paid for that." Nevertheless, she cast her gaze in my direction and inquired, "Are you being entirely serious?" She then stated that she would not engage in sexual intercourse with me. I responded by asking her if she had been contemplating this for an extended period of time. I informed Karen that she was not being convincing. We then proceeded to engage in sexual intercourse. Upon my return, she began shouting at me, "You are a heartless individual who only seeks to gratify your own desires. How can you be so indifferent and callous? What has transpired to cause this drastic change in your character? Where is the Kevin I once knew, who was always so enthusiastic and playful? He is no longer with us. Your sister has effectively killed him. She has done to me what I had just done to your spouse. I have made him a cuckold." The woman was elderly and feeble, and she had achieved precisely what she had set out to do, just as her sister had done. She proceeded to gather together her belongings and take her leave of the house. I was strongly opposed to the idea of a wife who was unfaithful to her husband, and I was particularly incensed when she called me a jerk and grabbed the last box of belongings and left the house. However, she was not at all as unpleasant as I had expected. However, I was aware that my sole intention was to seek retribution on behalf of my sister. It appeared that a desire for vengeance and accountability for the perpetrator's actions was building up inside me. My objective was to confront the situation and hold the perpetrators accountable for their actions. I was aware that this would not resolve my personal issues, yet I felt compelled to take action. I was convinced that I had to exact revenge. The girl's name was Kay, and she was quite attractive. I saw her almost every day. Sometimes, one experiences an uncontrollable impulse or emotion. That was how I felt when I saw this girl. She would visit the cemetery with her girlfriends every day. They were all laughing and appeared to be enjoying themselves. Mara was one of the girls with whom she had lunch. I had known her for years, we were friends, though not particularly close. It was somewhat of a high-class affair. "How are you doing? What kind of thing?" Mara knew about my divorce from the little neighborhood. Almost everyone I knew had heard the rumors when Mara arrived at the restaurant alone at lunchtime. At lunchtime, I invited her to join me at the restaurant. I wanted to converse with her. She sat down, exhibiting a slight degree of hesitation. I informed her that the purpose of our meeting was simply to have lunch and that I was tired of dining alone. We discussed her family and the well-being of her children. She informed me about her husband's promotion and related matters. Topics she inquired about included my life and how things were going since the divorce. It was common knowledge that Rachel had been unfaithful to me, but no one knew with whom. When someone had the courage to inquire, I simply stated that I had no idea who it was and that it was irrelevant. I also questioned Mara about the new girl in the office, who had introduced herself. Carly and her husband, Jim, arrived approximately 1 year ago. Upon hearing Jim's name, I experienced a sense of apprehension. Mara observed my reaction and stated, "Kevin, Carly is a contented married woman. It is unlikely that you will engage in flirtation with her so soon after your divorce." I was aware that I possessed an affable personality. Consequently, I informed Mara that I believed Carly to be a pleasant individual. She was a lovely woman and expressed interest in learning more about me. She proceeded to provide me with additional information about Jim. I was then faced with the task of determining whether he was who I believed him to be. If he was, I was confident that he would be interested in meeting Carly. I found this situation to be highly disagreeable, yet I was unable to avoid it. One day, I ate lunch in a corner booth with a friend. He never inquired about my personal life. He was aware that it was for the best, so we had a wonderful time together while dining. Carly and her husband entered. It was the same man I had seen with my wife. I was tempted to lash out, but I remained calm. He did not recognize me because he had only seen me for a few seconds when I made physical contact with him. Unfortunately, I recognized him and proceeded to engage in conversation with his wife. I initiated a discussion with Carly on one occasion while she was dining alone. I introduced myself and explained that I was acquainted with Marcia. My intention was to make Carly feel at ease. She smiled as I introduced myself and inquired as to whether she would prefer to sit at the same table. She appeared somewhat apprehensive until I informed her that she would be responsible for paying for her own meal. This information seemed to amuse her, and as we sat at the table, she began to speak enthusiastically about herself. She mentioned that her husband, Jim, had recently relocated to the area. In a subsequent conversation, she revealed that her husband had been the victim of a violent attack. 2 men had assaulted him, stealing his belongings. He had been taken to the emergency room, where he received stitches in his left eye. She stated that he was in a critical condition when he returned home. Despite filing a police report, he was unable to provide a detailed description of the perpetrators. Furthermore, the perpetrators were never apprehended by the police, which explains why the victim never reported the incident after lunch. I informed her that it was a pleasure to meet her and that she was welcome to sit at the same table with me. I then proceeded to disclose a significant personal issue. I had developed a romantic interest in Carly. I was simultaneously driven to seek vengeance and reluctant to cause Carly harm. I was at a loss as to how to proceed. I needed time to reflect. I saw her almost daily, often with other women from her office. She often glanced at me with a smile. One day, I made an offhand remark to her that I would be starting lunch an hour late so that I was unable to have lunch with her again, but the following day she had her lunch an hour late and was alone. She approached my table and requested to join me, and I agreed. We began eating lunch together virtually every day, and we became close friends. I developed strong feelings for her. One day, I stood up and I informed her that she was one of the most attractive and amiable women I had ever encountered. If she were not married, I would have proposed a date. She became visibly nervous and replied, stating that she was married to Kevin. Despite the imperfections of her marriage, she asserted that she would never engage in infidelity. I was compelled to inquire about her marital status. She inquired as to the nature of the problem in her marriage. She had tears in her eyes and stated that she suspected her husband was unfaithful to her, but she was not certain. I grasped her hand and held it for approximately 1 minute. She was trembling, and I did my best to calm her down. I was perplexed by the thought of what type of individual would abandon such a beautiful woman. I was overcome with a sense of absurdity. What an imbecile. I then began to contemplate the possibility that he had returned to Rachel. Glancing at Carly, I informed her that I needed to speak with her about something of the utmost importance. However, I was unable to do so in this setting. Therefore, I requested that she meet me after work. I needed her to trust me sufficiently to visit my residence. Therefore, I am unable to visit your residence. How will that be perceived? What will others think? I briefly considered Rachel. Why couldn't she behave like this? Carly, I really need to talk to you. You are too important to me to not share what I know. Please meet with me. I suppose I trust you, Kevin. I like you. But we don't know each other well enough to be alone in an apartment. Can we meet here to discuss in the car or at a restaurant? Okay, Carly, we'll meet back here after work. I will even buy you dinner. She grinned at me and added, you must think I'm important because you're willing to pay for dinner. She laughed. I needed to organize my thoughts. What will I say? How should I say it? I did not want to risk pushing Carly away. I needed her for vengeance, but now I needed her too. I had fallen in love with somebody else's wife. That was not intended to happen. I should have simply taken her. In front of her husband, she laughed at him. Why did it have to be her? It was an unfortunate turn of events. We had arranged to meet for dinner. She informed me that she had spoken with Marge and learned about my divorce and how I had discovered my wife engaging in sexual intercourse with another man. She stated that it must have been distressing to witness such a scene in one's own home. She expressed remorse for my situation. Carly, I am compelled to inform you of several matters pertaining to my personal history. I am aware that you are currently married, but I am experiencing a profound romantic attachment to you. I request that you refrain from making any further disclosures, as I am a married woman. Carly, I must inform you of certain facts. I must tell you something, and you must listen. As I have already stated, I have fallen in love with you. However, I am aware that I am a stubborn individual, and I recognize that my personality has been shaped by the fact that I met my wife and her lover together. I am sure you have heard people discuss how mean I have been. I am unable to alter the situation. I wish I were capable of doing so. I carry the burden of my wife's infidelity with me at all times. My wife and her lover planted the seed of doubt in my mind. My plan is to locate her lover's wife and confront her in front of her husband. That is my intention, Carly. I am married to the son of a wealthy family. Someone interrupted me. Kevin, please do not interfere. I would like to inquire further about this matter, as it is of a highly personal nature. I am aware that discussing it is a source of distress for you, as I can discern from your tone of voice. I would like to continue, as I mentioned previously, that I was planning to exact revenge on my wife's boyfriend. However, I now find myself in a quandary. The woman I have fallen in love with is Carly. She covered her face with her hands. Carly, the woman I had fallen in love with, was shocked to discover that this man was her husband. She asked me how I could be so certain and what I planned to do to get back at her husband. I wanted to comfort her, but she stopped me and asked me to wait. Do not touch me at this moment, she implored. I require time to process this information. Carly, approximately 1 year ago, discovered a male individual in her bedroom. She proceeded to physically assault him and subsequently expelled him from the residence in a state of undress. At the time, she was only aware that the man's name was Jim. However, for reasons that remain unclear, she retrieved the note that Rachel had left her and saved it. She then extended it to Carly. Upon reading the note, she was overcome with emotion. For the past 6 months, I had been observing you as you frequented the restaurant for lunch on a daily basis. I had been waiting for an opportunity to meet you, as you represented a positive aspect in my life. Despite being previously unaware of your existence, I had developed feelings of affection for you. I was not informed that you were already married. At that time, I did not contact you because I was still dealing with character issues and was formulating a plan of retribution. One day, I inquired about you from Marge, who informed me that you were married. This made me anxious because I wanted to get to know you better, but I did not want to jeopardize your marriage. Another day, your husband took you to lunch. At that moment, I recognized who he was. I did everything I could to avoid beating him up again. If you were any other lady, I would have put you in front of him by now, solely for vengeance. Carrie cried and folded her arms in front of her. I continued, I fell in love with you, and I could not force that on the lady. I am currently experiencing a state of profound perplexity. I am torn between two conflicting desires. On the one hand, I want to hurt your husband, but on the other, I want to make love with you. It has been a long time since I have engaged in sexual intercourse. In fact, for the past year, I have been consumed by a single-minded pursuit of revenge. I believe that your husband has rekindled his relationship with Rachel, his childhood sweetheart, and that she is now divorced. Carly, I am compelled to inquire as to your sentiments towards me. I am compelled to ascertain the appropriate course of action. I solemnly vow that regardless of your feelings towards me, I will not cause you harm. I am currently unable to do so. Carly, I am compelled to inquire as to your sentiments towards me. I am compelled to ascertain the appropriate course of action. I solemnly vow that regardless of your feelings towards me, I will not cause you harm. I am currently unable to do so. I am aware that I am perceived as a freak and a person driven by vengeance. However, I am also aware that there is another side to me that has not been visible to the world for the past year. I would like to present this side of me to you. I kindly request the opportunity to demonstrate this aspect of my personality. I am aware that I can be softer and gentler towards a woman who is worthy of such treatment. I believe you are such a woman. Carly, there is a man who desires to exact revenge, but obstacles are preventing him from doing so. Please assist me in this matter. If you desire, we may subsequently create a loving life together. My God, so many things are occurring simultaneously. I have numerous questions, but no answers. I am currently uncertain about my feelings towards you, my husband, and myself. I must consider the information you have previously shared. I ask for your understanding that I am not attempting to deceive you or push you away. My intention is to provide you with assistance. However, you appear to be experiencing significant distress. I was experiencing considerable distress. After a somewhat upsetting dinner, I accompanied Carly to her vehicle. I apologized for any offense I may have caused and explained that I felt she needed to know the truth. I assured her that I would do my best to work with her and resolve our difficulties together. However, I recognized that this may not be the optimal time to tell her. I attempted to convey my evolving sentiments toward her, but I was overcome with emotion. I simply wished for her to be aware that she had allowed me to give her a brief embrace before she departed. I had not resolved any of the underlying issues. In fact, I had exacerbated them. Perhaps APS alerting her about her husband's past was an unfortunate decision. I am unsure of her thoughts on the matter. I hope that she had a positive experience the following day. I was eager to see her for lunch. I needed to understand her feelings and ideas. I proceeded to the restaurant where we typically have lunch. I waited for her, but she never arrived. This was a surprising turn of events. I was uncertain as to whether I should have intervened. Had I done so, would she have fought with her husband? Was he attempting to harm her? If so, I would have taken drastic action against him. Perhaps she had taken a different approach and simply informed him about me and who I was. I was concerned about her lack of attendance. I was unsure whether I should call her home or I advised her to wait another day, as I was experiencing difficulty concluding my workday. I attempted to divert my attention from Carly when I arrived home. The telephone rang, and it was Carly. Her voice conveyed a sense of distress. "Kevin, I need to see you. I am aware that I should not have come to visit you, but circumstances have changed. I need to see you tonight. I would like to come over and visit you. I was quite concerned about you, Carly. I had a difficult time today because I did not see you at lunch. Did he cause you any harm? If he did, I will kill him. Yes, come over now. I will be waiting for you here." I was startled by the telephone ringing. I was unsure who it might be. I opened the door and saw Carly grinning. "I followed you home, but I was uncertain whether you were simply pouting or if you actually wanted to help me by answering the telephone in the way you did. I realized that you were being honest with me. I apologize." The brief test was necessary to ascertain her sincerity. I was delighted to see her and embraced her warmly. She felt wonderful. I inquired about her absence from work. She informed me that she had spent the evening organizing her thoughts. My husband, Jim, returned home late, as is his custom. He provided excuses for his tardiness. Given his tardiness at work, I attempted to initiate physical intimacy with him, but he declined. He stated that he was fatigued and intended to retire for the evening. I surmised that if a man declines sexual intercourse with a woman like Carly, he either derives pleasure from it or is otherwise uninterested. Carly elaborated this morning, stating that she had waited until Jim had departed for work. Prior to conducting my own investigation, I began searching my computer files for any hidden data or emails that might be pertinent to the matter at hand. Given my professional experience with computers, I am reasonably proficient in this area. With the information you provided, I was able to successfully locate several relevant files. The information she provided was quite extensive and detailed. She stated that she would explain the situation to me in order to avoid having to read through all of the material. She then proceeded to review the material with me. I am disinclined to be used by him, and this is one of my potential issues with you. I grasped her hands and she said, "I don't know how I feel about you. One part of me cares deeply about you, but the other urges caution. He only wants to use you for his revenge and then discard you like the situation is still evolving, so I am currently maintaining a wait-and-see approach regarding our relationship. If you genuinely care about me, you will wait until our circumstances become more clear before taking any further steps." I smiled and replied that I am simply requesting an opportunity to demonstrate my commitment and sincerity. Should I act precipitously, I would appreciate a gentle admonition to proceed with caution. Might I request a brief, affectionate gesture before you embark upon your investigative endeavors? She bestowed upon me a broad, cheerful grin and respectfully declined. Let us commence without further delay. My husband applied for this position, and he did not merely receive a transfer, he requested it. He informed me that he had been transferred. This was untrue, he had in fact been relocated to his former hometown. I did not attach much significance to this at the time, assuming that he, like many people, simply wished to return to his previous place of residence. I loved him, so I acquiesced to the relocation. Approximately 6 months ago, he attended a reunion. Was your former spouse in attendance? My wife was also present, and if so, I would like to know whether you were there. I had a family engagement at the time, it was my mother's birthday, so I went instead of her. He informed me that old reunions are usually uninteresting. In retrospect, my wife had a reunion. I was scheduled to go on a business trip out of town that weekend, and I inquired as to whether she would accompany me, but she indicated that she wished to reconnect with her former friends. I had not previously considered this possibility. You are a perceptive private investigator. I am enclosing copies of the correspondence between them in the period preceding the reunion. While these messages are not romantic in nature, they do indicate a certain level of expectation to see each other again, and here are some letters from after the reunion, as you can see or at least read when you caught them having sex about 4 months later. This was not the first time they had met and had sex, they had been doing it for 4 months. I was angry that he told me, "It's not what you think." One might be forgiven for assuming that the situation would simply resolve itself. However, I had been convinced that I had reached the end of my pursuit of retribution against her, given that we were no longer married. My intention had been to exact revenge solely against Jim. However, circumstances had now changed. Carly observed the pain, hurt, and malice in my eyes. I informed her that I was not angry with her, but rather, I was enraged by the actions of my former spouse. My wife's actions had made me feel like a cuckold, which I found extremely frustrating. I then turned to Carly and stated that I required a kiss to calm down or I would resort to violence. I stood up and proceeded to walk over to the wall, stating, "Stop, you idiot. I'm going to punch it." "To kiss you, I'm going to kiss you," she stated emphatically when we broke up for the second time. She then added, "That's enough, Tiger. I'm only human, too." When we sat back down, I expressed my gratitude, and she replied, "It's my pleasure. Now, let's get back to work." "I can't remain here for the duration of the night." We both laughed, as we were thinking the same thing. Here are copies of my husband's cell phone records for the last year or so. As you can see, this number receives calls almost daily. I called the phone company, and the number belongs to a Rachel Miller. It is my wife's maiden name. I was unaware that she had taken it. I was also unaware that she had a cell phone. When was it purchased? Judging from my husband's phone records with that number, it was about a month before he was. She was beaten up by a couple of thugs named Kevin. This suggests that she had the phone before you caught them. It may explain why they got away with it for so long and why she did not fight for the larger financial compensation in the divorce. Some of that could have been revealed, which might have been to her disadvantage. Carly, how do you feel about that? I am mostly proud, but you are still married to that man. What do you want us to do? She looked at me, realizing that I had said that I would like to take everything we have away from him. I want to make him regret doing this to me. I want to embarrass him in public. How might I accomplish these goals without turning into a prostitute? I want to keep my pride. Could you, Carly, live in the same house for a couple of weeks and not give anything away? I have no problem making a dinner or two if he keeps seeing his mistress. He will be fine on a regular basis. Carl, you need to go shopping first. We can go during lunch if you want. It is important to ensure that you use joint credit cards in both your names. This will prevent any issues if you only use cards in his name. You should use this opportunity to purchase items that you have always wanted. It is possible to accumulate significant debt. You may wish to consider taking out a cash advance and placing the funds in a savings account or purchasing bonds or stocks. Kevin, you are a stockbroker. Could you assist with the investment process? I am not currently doing so. I would like to dispel any doubts you may have about me. You are very dear to me, and I want you to trust me. I am in a position to provide the necessary funds if you so desire. I simply wish for you to be aware that I have no ulterior motives. My intention is to be of assistance to you. In the event that you decide to engage in sexual intercourse with me, it will be in retaliation for past transgressions. We had agreed that credit cards would be our initial focus when she rose to leave. I inquired as to whether I would receive any additional kisses that day. She embraced me, opened her mouth slightly, and kissed me. I felt as though I was the adolescent girl pressed her body against the growing erection of the man. She then pressed her pelvis against him and pulled away, uttering the words, "You are skilled. I will see you tomorrow at lunch." She smiled and entered the vehicle. The following day, instead of lunch, the men and the adolescent girl visited several banks using their joint credit cards. The girl took out thousands of dollars in cash advances, which would allow her a month to complete all the transfers before the credit card bills were due. She was intelligent, she did not use any of the funds. In the event that he did use the cards, she discovered that one of the cards he used to charge his motel room twice a week. Over the course of 3 days, she and I engaged in negotiations with the bank, utilizing 7 different charge cards. I was responsible for picking up checks and investing all the money for her. I utilized tax-exempt government bonds and other accounts that would be challenging to withdraw money from. Carly requested that I place the accounts in her name so that her husband could not access the funds, but I made her I designated her as a co-signer so that I could not withdraw the funds without her signature. I proposed that she become a co-signer as a means of instilling confidence in her decision to invest in me. I commenced monitoring the latest developments in my ex-partner's life but was unable to ascertain significant information. I furnished Carly with all the data I could gather about her, which she then leveraged to her advantage. She informed me that Rachel now works at the same company as her. Carly's husband, Rachel, was one of the company's secretaries. Carly leveraged her connections to ascertain where they spent their time outside of work. They had been engaging in infidelity for an extended period and believed that their actions were not being noticed. Carrie encouraged her friends to begin photographing, and I documented everything that was going on and discovered that everyone adored Carly. All of the other secretaries respected her and sought her assistance with computer-related issues. I discovered that she was a highly skilled computer specialist who did not outwardly appear to be one. She had a history of moving from office to office, providing assistance to secretaries with a range of computer-related challenges. In regard to their computer issues, they never felt humiliated or laughed at because Carly always took the time to explain the procedure to them. They all felt safe with her. I was unaware of my retaliation. I was uncertain of how I would accomplish it. I could not rape Carly, as she was the only positive thing in my life. My wife was no longer in my life, but I was still motivated to seek retribution. Our relationship had been characterized by a long-term extramarital affair, even before our divorce. However, I was uncertain about how I would manage without Carly's assistance. I was unsure if I could successfully carry out my plan without her help. Carly had made it clear that she was not willing to engage in sexual intercourse with me at this time. She would be no better than my unfaithful wife or her spouse. She cared about me, but she was still married. I needed a plan of action. As previously stated, I had been a model citizen for the past year. I had participated in sports and had maintained a healthy lifestyle. I had a lot of friends with questionable backgrounds. In essence, the individuals in question were pimps and prostitutes. I served as their investment broker, and together, we generated considerable income. They generated revenue, and I made an investment on their behalf. I have engaged with numerous prostitutes, some of whom were commendable individuals. Others, however, were less admirable. Fortunately, I was able to discern the difference between the two. They were delightful to interact with and attracted a significant number of clients to me because I did not dismiss them. While I may have had differences of opinion with them regarding their lifestyles, they were still human beings. I contacted one of my pimp colleagues and requested a favor when I had finished sharing my story. He responded with laughter and a remark indicating that I was a malevolent individual. He informed me that there were no free lunches in this world. I replied that I was unfazed by this, and that as long as everything was done correctly, I might even receive a bonus. Fortunately, my strategy was finally coming together. Carly and I met one evening to organize our operation. She expressed concern that I would continue to want to take her out in public, which she felt contradicted her beliefs. She saw herself as a special woman with a good personality. I promised her, under oath, that I would never hurt or disrespect her. She simply gave me her. He displayed his signature ice-melting smile and remarked, "I believe I have fallen in love with you." He then informed her that he had requested that she use the next few days as vacation, sick leave, or time off. This request had no impact on the operation's success, as it only allowed for a few days to plan. Kevin was then asked how he planned to achieve his revenge without using him. He was also asked what he needed from him to ensure the operation's success. He responded by requesting that she stop asking so many questions. She then asked him about room 109, which he had mentioned was booked for the following Wednesday. He confirmed that it was scheduled until 10 o'clock p.m. It would appear that the same accommodation is always booked for approximately 5 hours. It is not the most luxurious establishment, but it is rented by the hour. Interestingly, based on the manner in which Jim made love to me, he could rent it for 15 minutes and save a significant amount of money. Therefore, I will rent the same room for Wednesday morning. While doing so, I will set up a remote-controlled VCR. It would be advisable for you to arrange to meet with my lawyer, Hawk. He is an excellent lawyer who is not afraid to take a firm stance in his representation of clients. With regard to the divorce decree, it would be prudent to state that you wish to proceed with the dissolution of your marriage under the specified circumstances. On Wednesday night, you will require Jim's signature on the document. How can you be certain that he will provide this signature? Kevin, there is no need to be concerned. I am confident that he will agree to sign the decree. Sign it. The repercussions are too serious. Would you prefer me to divulge the entire plan, or would you prefer to wait and be surprised? My God, Kevin, you are making me nervous. I do not think I can wait to hear anything. You are concerned, and it is affecting me. I only want to leave my mark on you. You are so special to me that I want you as much as I want my revenge. We're going to take our retribution as a joint undertaking. I hope you share my sentiments. Once we have exacted our revenge, I will have achieved my objective. Are we going to completely ruin their lives, Kevin? I am reluctant to do so. My desire is merely to exact revenge. We will devastate their lives, but they will continue to live unless they sign the divorce papers. This is the plan. They normally meet between 5 and 6:00 since Jim typically arrives approximately 30 minutes before Rachel. We intend to influence him. My associate, Big Louie, will visit Jim. Sally and Sue will join him. They are sex workers who are currently unable to work due to illness. Big Louie requires Jim to care for his women. Jim would likely not want to offend Big Louie. How do you know about these individuals, Kevin? They are my clientele, are affluent individuals, and I assist them in investing their capital. Upon Rachel's arrival, she will have the option to engage in sexual intercourse with Jim. Big Louis will also receive a portion of the proceeds throughout this period. I will be situated in the van, controlling the remote, while you will approach the scene and observe Jim and Rachel engaging in sexual intercourse. At the appropriate moment, you will then file for divorce, after which you will proceed to the closet to retrieve the video recording. Then, you should proceed to the closet and provide Jim with two options: either he can sign the divorce papers or he can walk away with the video. Once he has made his decision, he is free to make another. After he has made his choice, you will return to the van. Big Louis will protect you from harm. He will not leave unless you do so. Carly, what is your opinion? Will this plan succeed? She smiled at me and said, "Do you not do more for me than for yourself? You are aware that you have another side, and I am beginning to appreciate it. Let us review the next 3 days." Carly met with our attorney, Sally Hawk, who stated that she wished to personally serve Jim with the divorce papers. She was certain that she would sign the official document with his name. She was the most Sally, a renowned divorce attorney in the state, commended the strategy, citing numerous instances where she had provided counsel. She was a reliable ally, driven by a genuine desire to assist. Big Louis was prepared, and we had made advance remuneration and a subsequent $500 payment contingent on favorable outcomes. He simply responded with a grin, indicating his willingness to proceed. I proceeded to the motel and secured a room for Wednesday afternoon. The receptionist informed me that I was required to vacate the premises by 4 p.m. As the room had already been reserved, I proceeded to meet Carly at a nearby restaurant. However, it was later revealed that my former sister-in-law was dining at the same establishment. I informed Carly that the man with Karen was not her husband. I also inquired whether the encounter would affect our plans. I told her that Karen was unaware of our relationship. When Karen saw me, she was taken aback. She seemed nervous and wondered who I was with. Carly has a curvaceous figure, which is accentuated by her lack of undergarment and short skirt. She quickly realized who I was and sat next to me. She then turned my face towards hers. She kissed me, applying considerable force. Karen was not the only individual observing our interaction, many others could see us. Carly pulled back and smiled. She then kissed my wide mouth again, pausing briefly as the waiter emitted a series of unusual sounds. I then directed my attention to the waiter and inquired as to whether he believed the woman in question was attractive. He responded in the affirmative. I then asked him if he thought she was his sweetheart. I continued to gaze at her and stated that, in my opinion, she was the only woman I was interested in. She smiled and I prayed that she was telling the truth. However, I was aware that she was acting and that my ex-sister-in-law was not her husband. Sister-in-law, the law would have something to say to Rachel. Karen never came to visit. God, I wonder why. Carly and I finished our lunch and went out the door. We went inside an electronics store and purchased the necessary equipment as we were leaving. She claimed that the kiss at the restaurant was real. She claimed she meant it despite the fact that she was teasing my ex-sister-in-law. On Wednesday morning, Carly and I were on edge. Any sting operation puts nerves on edge, as every detail must be timed and completed correctly. There is little space for error. Carly visited with Sally to ensure that the divorce paperwork was in order. I went into the motel room and set up the video equipment. I positioned the rental van in front of the building so that it would not be noticeable in the dark. I accompanied Carly to meet Big Lou. He was visibly nervous when he saw Carly. He inquired about the nature of her relationship with me. I introduced them. I knew she was a reliable associate. Despite my own nervousness, I could not help but be affected by the imposing figure of Big Louie. Standing at approximately 6 feet tall and weighing around 320 pounds, he was as black as the ace of spades. However, despite his intimidating appearance, he was a highly intelligent individual. He held a master's degree in business and was estimated to be worth millions of dollars. I was able to gain insight into his financial affairs as his financial broker. He observed her evident concern and reassured her, "Do not fret, young lady. You are in no danger. Kevin is a trusted associate, and I hold him in high regard. I will ensure your safety and protection. You needn't worry." She experienced a slight sense of relief and expressed gratitude for his empathy. Lou then stated that he and his associates would arrive at approximately 5 o'clock. The time was 15 p.m. Later that morning, Jim was given a few minutes to prepare. Carly utilized her computer skills to send an email to both Jim and Rachel. The email stated that a note had been received from the other party. It read, "Honey, I have a special treat for you today. Please do not ask any questions when you arrive here. I know you will be astonished. Simply say yes. Also, let's avoid communicating for the remainder of the day. I want you to remember this night for your entire life. I love you." At 5 p.m., Jim entered the room. Carly and I proceeded to wait in our vehicle. We were visibly nervous, as this was a significant event for us. At 5:15 p.m., we observed Big Louis, Sally, and Sue approach the room and knock on the door. At this point, we activated the cameras, as we did not wish to commence recording until the proceedings commenced. We utilized 2 cameras, one positioned above the lighting apparatus and another within the smoke alarm. The pinhole camera produced remarkable image quality, a detail that we must remember. To return the following day to retrieve the cameras, Carly and I were visibly nervous when Big Louis knocked on the door and unlocked it. We heard Jim's question, "Who are you?" Louis revealed that he had been paid to bring his 2 women into this room. Jim stated that there must be an error, and Louis then asked, "Do you have any trouble entertaining my ladies, buddy? Are you Jim Nelson?" Jim replied that he did, but he did not expect company. Louis informed him that they had been paid in advance to come to this room and engage in sexual intercourse with the inhabitants. Louis informed him that they were not a charitable organization and would not return the money. He then proceeded to engage in sexual intercourse. His entrance initiated the recording. Jim's demeanor was visibly tense, as evidenced by the audio on the recording. He had assumed that Rachel had planned a surprise for him when he received the email, and thus consented to proceed. He then removed his clothing and provided a few details about Sally and Sue. Sally was black, whereas Sue was Caucasian. Despite their profession as prostitutes, they were. The women were strikingly attractive and highly proficient at their craft. However, they were currently indisposed due to illness. Large Louis simply reclined in the large chair and observed the girls. Carly was monitoring the situation via a remote control. She experienced a complex emotional state, simultaneously feeling sad and delighted. She was saddened by her husband's infidelity but also elated by her own actions in response. Her husband of 5 years had decided to engage in extramarital relations, but she was gratified that her own actions had commenced. She was approached by Big Louie, who responded to a knock at the door and discovered Rachel on the other side. He instructed her to enter, and she inquired about the situation when she observed her romantic partner, Jim, as she entered the room. She was uncertain about her initial response. She was aware that Jim had sent her an email to inform her that something was about to occur that night. There was a knock on the door of the van. It was our lawyer, Sally Hawk. She inquired about the situation and then glanced at the monitor. Big Lou was clearly waiting outside the door to protect Carly and Sally Hawk. If they needed him, both Carly and Sally approached the door. Carly was the first to enter the room. She began to verbally abuse Jim and Rachel, uttering every swear word she had ever mastered. She demanded a divorce. Jim and Rachel noticed Carly at the doorway yelling at them. They knew they'd been caught red-handed. They were unable to offer an explanation as to how they might extricate themselves from this predicament. Carly continued to berate Jim, questioning why he had become involved with her if she was unworthy of his affections. She accused him of having an affair and expressed her hope that he had terminated the relationship. However, he had not done so, and she was now demanding a divorce. Sally Hawk, Jim's attorney, was present. She outlined the terms of the divorce, indicating her intention to initiate proceedings that evening. This would facilitate the dissolution of their relationship and enable Jim to pursue a relationship with Carly. Sally Hawk was also representing Carly. She outlined the terms of the divorce, indicating that they were straightforward and uncomplicated. She will be leaving tonight, and she will have 24 hours to pack whatever she wants. You will not be present tonight. After 24 hours, she will never return to these grounds. This is an apartment that was rented in your name. Therefore, you can have her too. You will be liable for all invoices owed and paid up to now. This includes all credit cards in your name or jointly owned. Carly will provide you with all joint cards tonight, but will never use them again. She will only be held accountable for the cards in her name. There are 3 each. Each of you will be responsible for your own car, including insurance payments and upkeep. Finally, Carly will receive your savings account balance of $88,000. She will remove the funds from the account tomorrow. You have a balance of $410,000 in the account, with nearly $80,000 in it. Carly has a balance of $115,000. If you agree to these provisions, you will be able to retain your own 401k account. However, you must sign the ordinance tonight, as it is irreversible once signed. Once signed, none of you will be permitted to make any changes. Carly has already signed it. You must simply sign your name where it says husband. He was instructed to review and sign the document. Rachel sat in contemplation. Jim inquired as to the consequences of not signing the document on the same day. Sally responded that the document would be nullified in 5 minutes upon her departure. She then proposed that they pursue legal action to demand the same benefits, but with the stipulation that they receive half of his 401k account. This is an excellent opportunity for you. I highly recommend that you accept it. Carly proceeded to retrieve a VCR tape from the closet. Sally began laughing. You're really quite foolish. We will not utilize this recording in the divorce proceedings, but we will make copies and send them to your company and its offices. I am sure they do not approve of their married staff engaging in extramarital affairs. At this point, Jim took a few steps in their direction. As Big Louie Ree, you have 3 minutes to decide and then we're out of here. Sally stated. Rachel looked to Jim, nearly whispering, Jim, Sally Hawk was my husband's attorney and I received no compensation. They claim she's one of the best in the state. You'd best accept that offer or you'll find yourself in a situation where you lack the resources to achieve your goals. Furthermore, we will lose our jobs if this recording comes into the wrong hands. Sally looked at Jim. In 1 minute, we will be out of here. See you in court. As they proceeded to take their leave, Jim interjected, requesting to know when he would receive the recording. Carly turned to Big Louie and handed him the tape. After Sally and I have departed, you may then give this tape to him. She also handed him an envelope containing the promise of 5 bonuses. Sally reiterated her previous statements, emphasizing that the document was irreversible. She encouraged him to email her with any questions he might have. She warned him that any disruption to Carly would result in arrest and imprisonment. She then informed him that he could sign the document and receive a copy, along with the tape, and joint credit cards must be considered. It is important to remember that Carrie has 24 hours to take whatever she desires from the apartment. The divorce is considered no fault and should be finalized within 2 months. Jim signed the necessary paperwork, and Sally handed him a copy. Carly and Sally then exited the premises shortly after Jim received the tape from Big Louie. They proceeded to join their respective groups. Carly and Sally approached the van with cheerful expressions. Carly kissed me briefly. The atmosphere was initially jubilant, but this changed when I heard what Sally had to say. Kevin, you cannot see Carly. Until the divorce is officially finalized, it is imperative that neither of you interacts with each other in any capacity, unless you are legally obligated to do so. All subsequent actions must align with the agreed-upon plan. We have identified several discrepancies in credit card charges from the past 2 weeks, but the legal documentation is in our favor, unless someone believes that Carly is attempting to defraud the financial institutions. That is why I permitted Jim to withdraw his 401k funds. There is sufficient capital in the account to justify the bank's pursuit of Jim if he attempts to declare bankruptcy. Additionally, there is no money under Carly's name, she only has $8. I advise that you retain the funds in the same financial institution, but in your sole name. This will minimize the number of inquiries from the bank. Following the dissolution of your marriage, you and your spouse may resume dating if you so desire. It is at your discretion. Kevin, you informed me that your employer has requested your relocation to another state for a few months to establish a brokerage firm. I suggest that you consent to this as expeditiously as possible. Carly will be fine. I will be here to monitor her situation. I must concede that you are currently Carly's primary source of concern. While I cannot compel you to take any specific action, I strongly advise you to do so. Carly was visibly distressed, so I embraced her. I recognized the veracity of Sally's assertion that the primary challenge was mine, the sole vulnerable link in the chain. I bade Carly farewell and requested that she contact me following the dissolution of the marriage. I would await her call. Sally and Carly exited the vehicle, with Sally driving Carly home to retrieve her belongings. She had expressed a desire for the vehicle to be obtained earlier that day so that Carly could transport whatever she desired. Sally stated, "I can be reached via telephone should the need arise to converse or ascertain further information regarding Carly." Following the departure of the aforementioned females, I proceeded to re-examine the monitoring apparatus, noting that Jim and Rachel had vacated the premises. I then returned to the room and retrieved my belongings. I obtained a duplicate copy of the recording, prepared in the event that it might prove useful at a later date. It is curious that no one ever inquires as to the availability of a second copy, given the presence of 2 cameras and 2 recording devices. I completed the necessary preparations. I concluded my duties for the day and returned home. I was gratified for Carrie, but remorseful for myself. The following day, I informed my supervisor of my imminent departure for Chicago on Friday. I hoped that circumstances would align for Carly. She was a remarkable individual. It appeared that she had achieved retribution. I was the sole remaining ally. Assisting Carrie was a source of enjoyment. I held a profound affection for her. Upon my arrival in Chicago, I immediately began working on establishing a new brokerage firm from scratch. During this period, I was preoccupied with concerns about Carly. I was also concerned about her well-being. I contacted Sally Hawk, who expressed satisfaction at hearing from me. She informed me that the situation was progressing as predicted. Jim had engaged a lawyer and intended to challenge the ruling. The lawyer informed him that he was pursuing an erroneous course of action and that if he wished to contest Sally's position, he would require the assistance of a different legal counsel. Jim was hurling accusations at Carly, claiming that she had set him up, yet he was unable to substantiate his claims. Sally informed Jim that should he persist in making allegations against Carly, she would pursue legal action. She was weary of his incessant complaints. Additionally, Sally relayed that Jim's legal counsel had informed her that both Jim and Rachel had contracted syphilis. They were required to receive vaccinations and take preventive measures. They engaged in sexual intercourse until the act was complete. Otherwise, they could have contracted the new strain from one another. Finally, Sally mentioned that Carly had relocated to a superb apartment in close proximity to her place of employment. She had removed nearly half of the items from her previous residence to set up the new one. She was advised to refrain from discussing me in case someone connected us. Of course, she has not yet engaged in a romantic relationship, but it has only been a few weeks. On the other hand, in a single conversation with Carly, Sally expressed her feelings of longing for me and her belief in my moral rectitude. I would have liked to be able to say the same while in Chicago, but the days passed by without any significant change. My condition remained as unsatisfactory as it had been before the revenge incident. However, I was able to visit Carly daily for Thanksgiving. I traveled to Michigan to spend time with my parents, as I felt the need to take a few days away from the situation. It was a pleasant experience to see my family. I accompanied my sister to the Christmas store, where we purchased gifts for our entire family. I also visited a jewelry store and purchased an engagement and wedding ring for Carly. Following the Thanksgiving vacation, I returned to Chicago with the hope that she would accept my proposal. I anticipated remaining in the city for approximately 3 more weeks. The weather was unseasonably cold and windy, and I found myself isolated in the city. Despite the city's impressive nighttime illumination, I felt a sense of isolation due to my lack of companionship. During my time in Chicago, I worked alongside the recently hired agents to establish the firm. Our efforts were met with success, and we attracted numerous clients interested in investing before the end of the year. Upon my return to Ohio, I met with my employer, who offered his congratulations on the firm's achievements. My work experience was relatively positive. However, I was concerned about the potential challenges in my personal life. Upon returning to my apartment 2 days before Christmas, I contacted Sally Hawk. Carly had relocated, so I did not have her phone number. Sally was pleased to hear from me and inquired about the business. I informed her that it was going well. I asked her about Carly and how her divorce was progressing. She paused before telling me that the divorce had been finalized 2 days earlier. I requested Carly's phone number, but she stated that she did not have the authority to provide it to me. She agreed to contact Carly and inform her of my return to the city. I thanked her and she wished me luck. I was uncertain how I felt about Carly's recent divorce. I had no idea what she had been thinking about in the month since I left for Chicago. I decided to stop by our favorite restaurant. I proceeded to the aforementioned establishment, which was my preferred venue for daily lunches with Marcia. I was hoping to see her. My friend Marcia, who was also present, acknowledged my presence with a wave. I extended an invitation to her to join me, suggesting that I might gain insight from her perspective. Marcia began expressing her pleasure at seeing me again. She had been informed that I was establishing a new agency in Chicago. We engaged in the typical preliminary conversation and discussed the holidays that were imminent. She informed me about her family and how things were going well. I inquired if Carly was employed by the company. Marcia replied that she was, but that she and her husband had recently divorced. She noted that the divorce had occurred so quickly, and suggested that Carly must have been distressed by it because she did not appear to be joyful. She also mentioned that Carly was reluctant to date and was spending a great deal of time at work. Mara expressed sympathy for her, but stated that she has had to deal with the situation on her own. Everyone still loves her and hopes she finds the right person. Mara stated that Carrie deserved better than a cheating spouse who was caught with another woman. I asked Mara if Carrie was working today. Mara replied that she was, but that she had received the call about an hour earlier, so she left for the afternoon instead of lunch. She will not return until next week after Christmas. I extended seasonal greetings to Marca and requested that she convey them to her family. I then proceeded to leave the premises. The answering machine indicated no messages. As I was beginning to experience a sense of melancholy, the telephone rang. I hastened to respond, anticipating it might be Carrie, but it was not. Instead, it was another telemarketer requesting financial contributions. I abruptly terminated the call, recognizing that she should have contacted me directly. Regarding her investment, however, she was not obliged to do so. Additional agents were available to update my clients' files while I was away. The agents and I exchanged information about new cases that had arrived for my clients. I could telephone the office to inquire whether any action had been taken on Carly's accounts. I immediately telephoned the office but received a voicemail. Upon checking the clock, I was surprised to see that it was already 5, the time was 12 p.m. It was a source of considerable frustration that the offices would be closed until Monday for the holidays. I was unaware of this throughout the holiday weekend, as all the offices were closed. My emotions were becoming increasingly volatile. I was at a loss as to how I could possibly get through the weekend without knowing anything. The phone rang again. I rushed over to it and responded. It was Sally, my attorney. She was calling to let me know that I was informed that she had successfully conveyed the message that I had responded to. See, additionally, she wished to apprise me of the finalization of all divorce proceedings. Jim was no longer permitted to file motions, having attempted but been unsuccessful. He was compelled to liquidate over half of his 401k to satisfy the bank's credit card requirements. I expressed my gratitude to Sally for her assistance and thanked her for the information she had provided. I extended my best wishes for the holiday season. On Christmas Day, I was greeted by a visitor when I opened the door. It was Mary, my neighbor. She had been collecting my mail and maintaining the apartment while I was away. I invited her in for a brief visit. She was an elderly woman who cleaned apartments for additional income. She typically cleaned mine approximately twice a week. She handed me my mail and a tray of homemade cookies for the holidays. I asked her to wait a moment because I also had a gift for her. I entered the house and presented her with an envelope containing 3 $100 bills, which I had prepared as a Christmas gift. She expressed her gratitude and then departed. There are numerous individuals like Mary in this world, and I found her to be a pleasant person to interact with. I was hungry, so I contacted the local pizza establishment and ordered a pizza. I requested that it be delivered, as I had no intention of leaving my residence that day. I also asked them to stop by the grocery store and purchase a 12-pack of beer. A 6-pack of Miller Lite beer. This exemplifies the appeal of small-town living. I decided to turn on the television to watch the latest news and wait for my pizza to arrive. Half an hour later, the doorbell rang. I got up to get my pizza when I opened the door and saw Carly standing there with a big smile on her face. I was overcome with emotion and tears came to my eyes as I said, "I thought you were the pizza delivery person." Smiled. "I'm sorry to disappoint you," I said. "There is no pizza. There is only me." Subsequently, the pizza delivery person arrived with my beer and pizza. I promptly paid him and closed the door. I then turned to Carly and inquired if she was hungry. I informed her that we had pizza and beer. I took the items in my hands, and Carly looked at me with a smile. She commented that I was a funny guy. I informed her that I had already prepared myself for what I was going to say. "Please come here. I must inform you of a couple of things, and then we can consume the pizza while it is still hot. I am aware that you dislike cold pizza. I am a divorced woman now and only learned today that you have returned. I did not want to leave you a message. I had intended to contact you via telephone, but I felt that a personal conversation was necessary. I left work early after Sally informed me that you were home. I went out to purchase a Christmas gift for you, which I will present to you after we have finished eating. It is not a common occurrence for me to spend money on a dinner for you, so let us eat." I inquired as to the nature of the gift she had procured for me. She smiled, her expression conveying a certain warmth and affection, and replied that I would soon discover its identity. I then proceeded to consume the pizza while she requested a beer. During the course of our meal, we engaged in conversation about her professional endeavors, discussing the progress and satisfaction she derived from her work. I also shared details about the agency we had recently established, providing her with a comprehensive overview of its structure and operations. The two avoided the inevitable questions that would arise once they had finished their pizza. Carly then inquired as to whether he was prepared for the substantial gift that she had procured for him. He replied in the affirmative and she proceeded to produce a small bag of a similar size to that of a lunch bag. She then announced her intention to return to the room. He then proceeded to put the pizza and beer on the counter, reached into the drawer that held the ring I had purchased for her. I retrieved it and placed it in my pocket. She called out from the bedroom, "Are you ready?" I responded affirmatively. When she entered the room, she said, "I purchased this for you today." She then invited me to unwrap it. She was wearing a red silk lace bra and had a small red silk lace bow in her hair. She then informed me that she was no longer a married woman and that she would not engage in infidelity with any husband. If I wished to retain the gift, we could proceed to the bedroom. I was overwhelmed with emotion, and tears were streaming down my face. I reached into my pocket and retrieved a ring, which I then presented to her. She was visibly moved and immediately accepted my proposal. I was overcome with emotion as I realized the depth of my feelings for her. I lifted her in my arms and carried her to the bedroom. That night was nothing short of incredible. I had never experienced such exhaustion in my entire life. I rolled off her and she snuggled against me, and we fell asleep. We must have slept for quite some time, as when we woke up, the house and the room were completely dark. It had been a long time since I had woken up next to a woman. I desired proximity to her person. I was compelled to urinate. I was unable to endure the anticipation any longer. Carly proceeded to shower and clean up. I placed the remaining pizza in the oven for a period of time. It consistently tasted superior when removed from the oven. While we consumed the pizza, we engaged in further conversation. I inquired about her plans for matrimony. She responded that she desired to wed as soon as possible. She was reluctant to delay the ceremony. At that time, it was approximately 10 o'clock. At 6 p.m., I contacted Sally Hawk at her residence. She inquired as to the nature of the emergency. I informed her that Carly and I were experiencing a significant challenge and that she might be able to assist in resolving it, given her expertise as a lawyer. I offered my assistance if I could be of help. Carly and I are eager to wed as soon as possible, but tomorrow is Christmas Eve, and we require a judge to officiate our marriage. Do you know of anyone who might be available? Sally began laughing. So Carly called you. I am pleased for both of you. Meet me at the courthouse tomorrow morning. We will obtain our marriage license, and then we will proceed to my house. You see, Mr. Hawk, my husband is a judge. I am confident that he will officiate the ceremony. I will see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. At precisely midnight the following morning, Carly, who was attired in a beautifully tailored ensemble, and I, in a suit, proceeded to the registrar's office. We obtained our license and subsequently proceeded to Sally's residence, where the ceremony was to take place. Her husband, who was present, appeared to be a respectable individual, given his profession as a judge. It is often difficult to ascertain the true character of lawyers and judges, but we were confident that Sally was an excellent choice. Carly had few remaining relatives in the area. A few distant cousins, so we decided to go to Michigan and surprise my family with a new wife. Their reaction was one of overwhelming joy and delight. They all love Carly. It is evident that she is a valued member of the family. The Christmas holiday proved to be a memorable one. However, we subsequently had to relocate after the Christmas period due to the need to secure employment. We are now both gainfully employed and are looking forward to the future. We were compelled to relocate and opted to reside in my apartment, which was already rented for a month. Each day after work, we transported some of her belongings to my place. It was enjoyable to engage in numerous activities together. The female employees at her workplace were delighted for her, noting that the former Carly had returned. Mara was somewhat taken aback when she learned of my new marriage, recalling my reputation as a formidable individual. Carly informed Marcia that she should not fret, as I was still a novice in the marriage and adored her greatly. The significant New Year's Eve celebration was fast approaching, and nearly all the prosperous businessmen in the vicinity were in attendance. I inquired of Carrie, "Do you wish to accompany us to the most esteemed social gathering of the year? It will be our inaugural appearance as a couple for the benefit of our entire community. I wish to showcase you before our former spouse." Carly considered for a moment and then looked at me and said, "Kevin, I love you with all my heart and I want everyone to know it. Yes, we will go to the New Year's Eve party, my dear husband." I observed her begin to collect herself. We proceeded to a New Year's Eve party. Carly looked she was attired in a red blouse that matched her lace bra perfectly. We were invited to sit at numerous tables, including that of my superior and his colleagues, Carly's friends, and even the few acquaintances I had. Sally and Judge Hawk invited us to join them at their table. We elected to sit with them. I informed Sally that I was pleased to see her looking so well. I had never before observed a lawyer looking so good. She appeared to be quite striking. We were introduced to the other individuals at their table, who were primarily judges and their wives. They seemed to be agreeable people. The music was audible, but it was New Year's Eve. Carly and I proceeded to dance the slow dances. Other men requested that Carly dance with them, but she consistently replied that she did not wish to do so. She stated that she only wished to dance with her husband. This was our year to be together. There was one exception, however. I participated in one dance with Sally, and Carly participated in one dance with the judge. They were special friends. While dancing, we found ourselves situated next to Karen, my former romantic partner. My wife, sister, as it transpired, we nearly encountered Karen and her husband on the congested dance floor. She glanced over and said, "My God, that's Kevin." I looked at her and said, "Good evening, Karen, and a happy new year to you." I then said, "I would like to introduce you to my wife, Carly." Carly extended her hand to shake Karen's, who reached out and said, "Hello, my name is Bob." Carly returned her smile and said, "Nice to meet you, Bob, and Karen. I believe we met previously at Robson's restaurant on Old Highway 40, approximately 2 months ago." "No, this establishment is not aligned with our budgetary preferences," Karen replied. Her complexion suddenly pale, she added, "It was a pleasure meeting you as well. We should return to our respective seats." We were aware that she would inevitably inform Jim and Rachel of our presence. We observed their table and saw Rachel inadvertently knock over her glass upon realizing our proximity. We swiftly turned to see them looking in our direction. We heard Rachel exclaim, "My God, Jim, he's with your former spouse." Jim nearly fell from his chair in an attempt to turn and look. Karen then directed her attention to Rachel and stated, "Rachel," he introduced her as his wife. Jim responded by asserting that the individual in question had deliberately set them up, resulting in the loss of over $100. In addition to the $1,000, they also set us up to contract an STD. How did they discover this information? Rachel stated that Kevin informed her that he intends to retaliate against us at some point in the future. Jim suggested that we attempt to recover the funds in court. Karen responded with skepticism, indicating that Kevin and his companions, including Sally Hawk and several judges, have significant leverage. "Jim, he can defeat you in a physical altercation beginning tomorrow." There is no doubt that Kevin is a man of strength and character, and based on his wife's demeanor, she is a woman of fortitude. They are a formidable couple. It was midnight, and the crowd was beginning to disperse. Sally and the judge bid each other good night, as did the people at their table. Therefore, after the next dance, Carly and I decided to sit in a booth situated in close proximity to Rachel and her companions. Carly excused herself to visit the restroom facilities. Upon her return, she observed Jim and Rachel observing her and me from the periphery of their attention. Carly inquired as to my preparedness. I regarded her and inquired as to the nature of her question. She responded, "Ready for what?" I replied, "Ready for what, honey?" "No, Kevin, you're ready for revenge." She then spoke in a voice audible to all at the table. For the benefit of all those present at the table, I would like to wish everyone a happy new year. I would also like to thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed this story, I would be extremely grateful if you could like and subscribe to my channel. If you have a story to tell about your own or someone else's experience, I would encourage you to get in touch. Thank you.